To Grid Live Pre-Race. Formula One is back at Las Vegas and racing tonight under the lights. Isha Azim from Racing with Isha and Jackson Todd from 36xracing.com join me. I'm Joe San Diego. A big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin the Show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. You too can invest. Link in the video description. And of course, super chats, buy me coffee are always appreciated. We'll thank you live on the air. Jackson, NASCAR's quiet, but we still got racing in the United States. Formula One, last major race in the United States of the year, and it's going to be a good one tonight, I think.
Yeah, that's true. It is Las Vegas Grand Prix Take 2 for Formula One. Interesting stories already before we get into Grand Prix action. Of course, tonight's top 3 starters do not feature a driver from the top 4 in the championship. Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, the stars of the 2024 season, will be starting back in the 4th to 8th positions. Instead, it's George Russell that took pole. He was fastest in FP3 and may lead the field into turn 1. Carlos Sainz is starting outside row 1, and a bit of a surprise in 3rd place. It's Pierre Gasly, Alpine, coming off the double podium last time out of Brazil, backs it up with a strong qualifying effort earlier today. Last year in turn 1, Max Verstappen took the lead from 2nd after he and Leclerc went wide. Fernando Alonso also went spinning. So, Isha and Joe, could we see some chaos in turn 1? It's a pretty short run to turn 1.
Yes, absolutely. I think the majority of the drivers in the top 7 to 8, probably all of them, are definitely going to be looking to gain an advantage at that first sprint to turn 1. It's going to be a crucial point to determine what the next few laps, possibly the entire race, is going to look like. As you mentioned, the stars of the 2024 season are starting not in the top 3, and so they're all going to be trying to gain as many advantages as they can into that first turn. And especially for Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, it's going to be crucial. And I think it's really going to have a strong impact on the outcome of this race.
It could very much have a big impact on the race. And especially, I'm looking at Lewis Hamilton. I think he has a lot of risk being in 10th place. If he gets a good launch, he could try to make up positions. But if somebody gets in trouble ahead of him, wrong place, wrong time. We saw that happen to Sergio Perez last year. He got some damage from Fernando Alonso spun, but he was able to turn that around, get up towards the front, continue on. So this is going to be a very important run to the start. I think the dirty side, last year we saw Max Verstappen had a good start. I don't know if that's going to happen again. Granted, there's more racing this year. We got some Ferrari Challenge Cup racing as well. So maybe it won't be too bad, but just the fact it's such a short run, you got the field mixed up. I'm curious to see how Pierre Gasly is going to do. He'll be on that clean side of the track. So if he has a good start and Russell and Carlos Sainz do something similar to what we saw last year, it would be a bit of a surprise if that Alpine could somehow find the lead, but it just then creates for a chaotic race, I feel. And like you say, it could set the tone, Isha, for how this race plays out.
Interesting storylines heading into tonight. It has been a relatively quiet weekend in Las Vegas. No major crash or on-track incident until qualifying earlier today. Franco Colapinto crashed hard, and once again, Williams is repairing another car. For the second consecutive race weekend, Franco crashed out. Last time it was wet conditions in Brazil, maybe a little bit more forgivable, but this weekend, kind of just a straight-up rookie mistake. Crash registered 50 Gs, a huge hit, and Franco, while he walked away, it's unknown the status of his ability to start later tonight. Franco being discussed possibly in a Red Bull seat for next year. He's not coming back to Williams. Does this hurt his chance to secure a spot on next year's F1 grid?
I'm not 100% sure it would hurt him. The big thing is Franco has shown the pace, how he has outperformed Alex Albon in qualifying a bit more, gotten some points. Like you said, Jackson, Brazil, you could say that's a bit forgivable. We saw a lot of drivers make mistakes. He wasn't just the only one, even though he crashed twice. And then what he did today, last night, the time zones depend when you're watching, but that was a mistake where, like you said, it's a rookie mistake. Hit the inside wall, crashed hard. So then it becomes he's fast, but he might have these rookie mistakes. If you are Red Bull, which has been the center of rumors, do you want somebody that's fast but might have those mistakes? Because right now, I don't know about you, Isha. I feel like he has more speed than Sergio Perez thinking about it.
Oh, yes, certainly. I think that Williams' decision to replace Logan Sargent halfway through the season with Colapinto has so far proven to be a good decision. Because if you take out these past two crashes he's had, he has been performing very well. He's been scoring more points than some of the other drivers on the grid. And Joe, as you mentioned, he does have better pace than Sergio Perez. So the crash in Brazil, definitely that was a mistake attributed to the weather. Here you could also call it a rookie mistake. So I think that he has some really good chances of securing a spot on the Formula One grid, and I think that if Red Bull does give him that chance, over Sergio Perez, I think that he could perform really well because he definitely has the potential to.
Definitely. That's a really good point. You should the sergeant replacement. I guess I haven't thought about that in a minute, but it's definitely working out to be a good move in the speed department. Speaking of Red Bull, they seem to be struggling this weekend in the speed department. A little too much drag on the car. Some aggressive cuts were made to the rear wing, but still Perez did not get out of Q1. He is starting 16th. Max Verstappen starting 5th. Clearly, Red Bulls are not the fastest on the grid. Last year, we had 3 leaders: Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, and Sergio Perez. 5 different lead changes in total. Isha, Joe, is there a chance that Red Bull fights for the lead tonight, or is it going to be Mercedes, Ferrari? I mean, Gasly's up there in the Alpine.
Red Bull as a team, no, definitely no, not with Sergio Perez. But if we're looking at Max Verstappen as an individual in that car, which he is struggling with, and he said was undrivable this weekend, I still think that he could fight for the lead. He's starting in 5th place. We know that his qualifying position has never been a hindrance in for him to, win the race or get as high up as he can. So I think that he can potentially maybe take the lead from George Russell, but I think that it's all going to come down to that first start into turn one and how far he's able to get. And then if he's able to overtake the cars ahead of him, I think that's going to be very important. But I think that he does have the potential to do so. He's always complaining about his car. This weekend too, he said it's undrivable. But then come race time, he's able to extract the max out of the car. So I think that we could potentially see him fighting for the lead. As far as Red Bull as a whole team is concerned, when you look at Sergio Perez, definitely no, though.
I will be shocked if somehow Sergio Perez ends up with the lead at all. It would have to be through safety cars, an unpredictable race, a lot of chaos, and keeping it clean. For Max Verstappen, one way I'm looking at him potentially getting the lead, if he has a solid start, could be in the top 3 or 4, and we have pit stops, try to use a little bit of strategy. Does he try to come in first? Because the Red Bull, lack of grip, if those tires are going to be essentially wearing out just because they're not getting the grip and just grinding themselves wearing out that way, he might pit early, try to undercut everybody. But if he somehow could make those tires last longer and take the lead as the others make a pit stop, if we get a safety car at the right time, all of a sudden he gets a free pit stop, that could change the dynamics of this race. But overall, it's only going to be Max Verstappen fighting for the lead. He has a couple avenues to do that. Sergio Perez, only if the race was to work out in his favor, where it's the chaos, all sorts of mess.
Yeah, that definitely sounds accurate based on how the season has gone so far. Las Vegas has been a pretty smooth weekend compared to last year's messy FP1. Racing action was very good on track last year with lead changes and plenty of passing. The second year of the event, we have a pretty mixed up grid as we've discussed. Do we anticipate a competitive race like we saw last year?
I think so. I've been really thinking about this, and I've been almost comparing it to Baku street circuit. The first year of Baku was a procession. A lot of people felt like, okay, this is not exactly a thrilling track. The second year, and since then, well, we've nicknamed Baku the Talladega of Formula One. It's so unpredictable. Last year, despite all the messes we had, 5 lead changes, 3 of them on track because of that long straightaway on the Las Vegas Strip. We had a couple safety cars, a virtual safety car. We saw Lando Norris crash early. We saw a lot of passes all over. So I guess it's going to be more the conditions, the teams, how much are they able to get more speed? Because some of them may be holding a little bit back. it's just so hard to tell. I would like to say, yeah, we'll see another competitive race, and this is really going to make Las Vegas, I think, win over fans. But it's really going to come down to how the strategy, the race, and how the drivers all race each other.
Yes, definitely. I think it's going to be a very competitive race because if you compare it to last year's, that's when we had Max Verstappen dominating everything. Ferrari and McLaren were able to, by this race, start performing better. But this year, they're more competitive. McLaren is more competitive. Ferrari has been doing way better than they were last year. And then with that, you also have Mercedes now, with George Russell starting in the pole position, right? The Mercedes were performing very well this race weekend. They've had the pace. So I think that it's going to be very competitive. And then you throw Max into that mix as well. So I think it's just going to be a very competitive and entertaining race, as Joe pointed out.
Definitely. As discussed, Verstappen maybe not dominating like he was last year, but still the championship could be wrapped up this weekend. Essentially, Verstappen just needs to finish ahead of Norris. Most simple scenario. Verstappen, however, he's starting at a good spot. He's not at the front of the field, but he is on the same row just ahead of Lando Norris. Not to mention Lando Norris' struggles on this season. McLaren's been bringing some really fast cars late in the season, but it might be too late to catch Max. Do you anticipate Max Verstappen to clutch the championship tonight in Las Vegas?
This is a tricky question, and I think it's one that has a bit of an obvious answer. I think that the chances of Max staying ahead of Lando throughout the race are very high, and if that is the case, then he will clinch the championship tonight. Um, I think it's all really going to come down to that start, and as you pointed out, Jackson, Lando Norris does struggle with his starts quite a bit. So I think it's going to be really, really difficult if he's not able to get ahead of Max at the start to then be able to overtake him throughout the race. So I think that the chances of Max clinching the championship title tonight are going to be high.
It's funny you say that. I'm almost leaning the opposite, and just because of the drag of that Red Bull, we got two DRS zones, especially that long Las Vegas strip. He might be behind, but it depends on how the strategy works with pit stops. I could see maybe Lando Norris finishing ahead of Max Verstappen, one, maybe two positions. But I'll be honest, still, the championship is still very much Max to win. I just do not see. It's not going to be a case of Max Verstappen crashing out or making a mistake. It's going to be something where Max is fifth place. Lando's probably going to be fourth or third.
So, if McLaren is going to try to keep Lando in the hunt for another week, what is their best move tonight? Do they need to focus on playing a strategy game, or could they do it on speed?
This is also a tough question. I think it's gonna have to be a mix of both. I think it's important that they play that they're able to get Lando ahead of Max at the start, and then that they're able to keep up a defensive strategy throughout the race if they want to keep Lando in the race for another week. I think it's going to be very important that they're able to execute both an offensive and defensive strategy well. And they really can't afford any mistakes throughout the race because even if Lando gets around Max, Max is going to be on his tail throughout the entire race. And so I think it's going to be very crucial that he executes every single thing as well as he can.
That execution, I think, is very key, as he said. One of the things this sort of reminds me of, and this is something we see some drivers make this mistake. They're so focused on, okay, you need to stay ahead of a certain driver, and they almost just race that driver rather than race the race itself and try to go for the win. If I'm McLaren, I'm going to be telling Lando Norris, don't focus on where Max is. We're not going to focus on where Max is because we're going to run our own strategy. We're going to go out there, get the win. In case for some reason Max is ahead of you, but he stays out a little too long and the safety car never shows up and you just kept following him, just trying to do that overcut or wait for him to make a mistake, you put yourself in a position where you could as well lose the race too and lose valuable points. So I think really McLaren has to just focus on trying to get Lando as far ahead as possible. We know Piastri's caught far away behind. So overall, I don't think that's going to be an issue of papaya rules. But if Lando Norris could just focus on that big goal, get as many points as possible, go for the win, regardless of where Max is, If he continues the championship, great. 2 more rounds to go to try to claim it. Slim chances. But if he doesn't, and at least he put out his best effort to try to score as much points as possible, just max out a better race, well, at least for next year, you might have a good opportunity and could just focus on going for the wins. No worry about the pressure of the championship for the last 2 race weekends of the year.
All right,
right.
now with that, let's head into the pick a winner segment. So this is our chance to be able to score some points. So comment with who you guys think will be winning this big Grand Prix. If you're not on the leaderboard yet, Vegas is a great place to finally get on the leaderboard. So Jackson, let's start with your pick for this race.
The storyline we didn't really talk about today, because I think it's going to be the storyline for the next 2 Grand Prix, is the Constructors Championship situation, particularly keeping an eye on Ferrari and their hunt to chase down McLaren. We also didn't talk much about Carlos Sainz. He's starting second. I'm going with Carlos to win Las Vegas Grand Prix.
Wow. I'm curious to see how Isha's going to go. I'm going to go, I think, with the driver that is starting outside the top 3. And I haven't picked him much at all this year. But I'm going with Charles Leclerc to get the win. Curious if we're going to get a third different driver from Isha.
Yeah, so I am actually going to go with the man who has been performing very well this whole weekend so far, all 3 practice sessions and the qualifying session. I'm going to go with George Russell. I think the Mercedes has great pace. It seems like they're doing better than the McLarens, the Ferraris, and the Red Bulls. So I think that he's going to have a strong shot. And that's my pick.
Interesting picks. 3 different drivers. In the chat room, a 4th different driver, Lando Norris. Going to have some work to do. It's going to be really fun to see how this race all plays out. And of course, we'll be recapping this race tomorrow on Grid Live Wrap Up, noon Eastern, because this race is going to be quite late. It's 10 p.m. Pacific, so that's way into Sunday morning on the East Coast. And then World Rally Championship, they're in Japan, and the championship on the line, the final race. And the crazy part, Tonic, who has to go out there, get the win, is the overall leader, and Thierry Neuville is in 7th place. That could change the championship in the last round. So we'll be recapping that tomorrow as well, right here on Grid Wrap Up. So be sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss tomorrow's show, and of course the rest of the next week. For Isha and Jackson, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the races.